There we go. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Sam Fillingham, CEO of PIP-UK, the Poland Syndrome charity, and I'm here today with the lovely Nan Cantor in the first in the series of interviews with our Poland Syndrome community champions to talk about our community register. And so Nan, thank you so much for taking the time and doing this with me today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. How do I get rid of this thing?
You just click on it.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Sorted. There we go.
That thing.
Poetry in motion here. So,
yes.
Nan, if you want to just talk us through your Poland Syndrome journey to begin with, because I know it will really resonate with a lot of people in the community.
Well, first of all, I'm going to be 77 next month, and I should, so it would be a long, if I did the whole thing, it would be a like 3-hour thing. So I'm going to focus on what I remember as a child, and a couple other things. When I was discovered that I had this strange hand, nobody knew anything. Nobody knew what to call it. It just came out weird. And my parents were shocked. My mother was guilt-ridden her whole life, I think. My father just sort of said, oh, okay, and dealt with it. So parents have different reactions. I think that what I learned from my parents was that they should have stayed next to me, not in front of me. My mother was either protecting me or pushing me, depending on the situation. And what I think I would have liked is if she'd been next to me when I was confronted with different things. I spent the first 7 years of my life in and out of hospitals because, probably should show you the deal. In those days, the surgery was pretty bad, but it works. It may not be pretty, but everything works. So the idea was to make it useful. And so they got rid of all the webbing. They tried to lengthen my middle finger, which didn't work. I had some surgery done on my thumb about 20 years ago. One of the top part of my pointer finger was turning and was painful. So they froze it, I guess is the only way to put it, so it would stop moving. Yeah. So, you know, it's a gift that keeps giving. You never know at different ages what's gonna pop up. But I loved my experiences in hospitals, which I found strange as I got older, because I think that's weird. But I did. I had wonderful nurses. Nobody was allowed to really visit. It was a very different time. It was the mid 40s and 1940s. And nobody knew what it was. They just dealt with it as something that had to be fixed. So they did the best job they could. And I've been able to do almost everything that I wanted to do, at least to try everything. I used to cross-country ski.
Wow.
I just made the pole shorter on my right side, but I figured out how to do it. I couldn't stop because the circulation in my middle finger is not good. So I never sat down or stopped for lunch. I just kept going because I had to keep the circulation going. Wow. So everybody thought I was amazing. Look at her, she's still going. Well, I couldn't stop, so that's why. But I felt I could try everything because my parents opened every door for me. And I pushed a number of doors myself. What they didn't know was that it affects different parts of your body. So the focus was on my hand. My arm is shorter, my shoulder's narrower, my right breast is smaller. I don't know what else is missing. I still don't know if something's missing, but it was never what the focus was. The focus was always on my hand. Trying to think of what else. So I did everything. I will say this, the hardest part for me was when I went off to camp or college, because everyone in my school growing up knew me and knew my hand, so they forgot about it. But every time I was thrown into another situation, I found I had to re-explain everything. And in the beginning, I wasn't prepared for that. And that was, camp was always very difficult. College was difficult, but by then I was older, and I just said, yeah, this is it. And that was the end of it. So I think that you get safe.
Yeah.
And you begin to forget that there's anything there, and that other people might have a sort of shock. I was telling Sam before that I remember when women first started shaking hands, which was the mid 80s.
Yeah.
Before that, it wasn't an issue because we didn't shake hands. We'd walk in a room, they go, hello, hello, and that was the end of it. But I was in Washington, D.C. as a lobbyist, and I went to these things all the time, and men would put out their hand all of a sudden. So I put out my hand, and the first reaction was always, oh, you have such small hands. How lovely. So I thought it was lovely too, and that was the end of it. I didn't hide it. I have numbers of photographs and videos, and I realize that I use it all the time, and it's just flailing everywhere. So it's very natural. People just see it as part of who I am and forget about it. I think when you put it in your pocket, that's when somebody notices it. Why does she always have her hand in her pocket?
Yeah, it becomes more noticeable. I know you said earlier you enjoyed seeing the pictures of other kids with Poland syndrome online with their hands on full display.
Oh, yes, I love that. Parents, you're wonderful, because that's really saying, that's it. That's what it is. And we don't care. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me.
Bless you.
So, yeah, there were pictures of me as an infant where my right hand was under the blanket. And when I got older, I got really angry because it said to me, my mother basically was embarrassed and didn't want anyone to see it. My father put me on horseback very early because he felt that if I could move a horse around, I would be empowered. So I really think horseback riding is important because it's true.
That is so important.
It's now, huh?
That's so important, that horseback riding. You're making me want to get my son doing it.
Well, it is, because there's this big animal and little you, and you're moving it. And they now have horse therapy, therapeutic horseback riding, which my father was way ahead of the game. And it is, you see, I've worked with it. You see all these kids who have all these different disabilities, and you can see them when they get on the horse. They just feel so powerful. So I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah.
I think we could talk all day about your journey with Poland syndrome. I know we've talked hundreds of times already before, haven't we? But I always learn something new. I really do. But to keep it within the time, we better talk about our lovely global Poland syndrome register that's being launched next month, because I know it's something you're really keen on, and I'd love to understand what it means to you.
It means to me what another step in this group. I never met anyone who had Poland syndrome. I never saw anyone. I saw a couple of people who had weird looking hands, but I never knew that was me. I just thought they had weird looking hands. Now I realize they had Poland syndrome too. But this group, for example, I didn't know that other people didn't have hair under their affected arm.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was weird that I didn't have any hair under there. So then one day somebody said it in this group, and I went, oh, okay, now that makes sense. So I think the registry will enable all of us to put out our quirks, all the little quirky things that we thought were just there, and now may realize when I see somebody else that it's not quirky, it's Poland syndrome. And when I go to the doctor, I feel much more empowered now because I can say to him, you know, I'm not alone with this sudden discovery of scoliosis. A lot of people with Poland syndrome have scoliosis, and why? And let's find out why we have it. So I think the registry, first of all, from a medical perspective, is going to be very important. But from a psychological, I'm a social worker, so I always think about the psychological perspective. It's discovering that we're not alone in lots of ways. And I never thought to ask about my heart, my kidneys, my anything else. It never occurred to me that that might be different.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
for me, the registry, like this group, makes me feel part of a larger community. And it's a place to go to ask questions and to feel empowered, another empowerment. And so certainly if I were a young parent, I would really feel good if there were something where I could go and say, oh, I have that to look forward to, or, oh, I now know how to get some help. I know what to tell my pediatrician to look out for, because it didn't have a name when I was growing up. It was this oddity. And so I think it's a very important thing, and I'm happy to be working on it. And I think Sam's amazing.
Oh, bless you. I didn't pay you to say that.
I just have to
didn't.
put that in. No, she didn't pay me to say it. I just think she's amazing.
Oh no, I really appreciate that. I really do. So if anyone is sort of thinking about signing up when it's launched next month, but isn't 100% sure, what would you say to just encourage them to embrace it in the same way that you are?
First of all, PM me. Contact me. I will be happy to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
New parents, I think it's really important. So you'll begin to know what things to look for. My parents had no clue, so they ignored a lot of things which would have been helpful in as far as, for example, occupational therapy. How to adapt better. I have some issues now which would have been better handled earlier if I'd known how to handle my body differently to do the things that I wanted to do, because I did everything.
Yeah.
And it's not just about shortening sleeves, which was my mother's focus in life. We all knew how to shorten sleeves. There were other things she should have been looking at, which she didn't know to look at. So
the information wasn't there, was it?
There was no information at all. So please join the register. You'll help everybody else.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nan. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And you've all heard it here first. Contact Nan. If you're not sure, contact me. There is strength in numbers in this registry, and we really want you to be part of that. We're changing the face of the health system, not just in the UK, across the world, and Nan and you listening out there signing up will be able to do that. So let's make this change together. Thank you, Nan. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Sam.